everybody. It looks like we lost Ian there.
Important to the show?
Yeah, well, he's the video guy and everything else. So it's he just disappeared there. So at first I thought it was just me. So welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us as I get thrown into being by myself there. Welcome to the General Manager Show with our good friend Brian Maxwell, who had joined us before, but got a little bit sick and couldn't attend that day. And so we appreciate everybody joining us. And today we're gonna talk about general managers, and that the video Brian did was we prompted the discussion of this was because he had the video of the 3 reasons general managers get fired. And it's a very interesting thing that we have, because I've always felt that general managers are always kind of stuck, and they're kind of in the middle between everybody, and they get blamed for everything from both ends, from the ownership and from the staff. But without the slide deck, I'm going to go over a couple of things here while we're waiting for Ian to get back in. Probably had a power outage or something, even though we aren't in Texas. Sorry, Stephen, if you're still on. Of course, everything said here today on the Auto Hub show is at the opinion of our guests, and just so everybody does not get the direct opinion, it's ours. It may or may not be, but getting our uncovering our proverbial butts, as the saying goes. And last week we had a great show with the Real Power in Automotive women. We had 3 tremendous ladies on there that basically took control of everything and showed us guys how our time is very limited as being in positions of power. And I see Pamela smiling there, just a very nice little subtle smile, but it was tremendous. It was very, very good. We enjoyed it immensely. But again, moving forward today is our general manager show with Brian Maxwell, joining us from that freezing capital of snow, Jacksonville, Florida. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for having me.
Tell us a bit about yourself.
Brian Maxwell. I've been now in the automotive industry for a little bit over 18 years. I work with some of the biggest automotive dealer groups around the country, regardless of brand. And what it is that I do is one of 2 things. Either they're looking for solid, qualified people that can come in and produce, or they're looking for a way to take their current sales team skills and performance up to another level. So in either one of those arenas, I like to believe that tremendous value is added when I have the opportunity to step in and work with the leadership of a store or of a dealer group. So that's what I do currently.
Perfect. It's very funny too that many of these people we see posted on all the sites on LinkedIn or whatever, they talk about that the biggest danger is thinking you know everything. And many of the people that join us, they earn their livings by sharing their expertise. And it's good to get somebody else to tell you what to do. And again, why I liked about this topic of the 3 reasons general managers get fired is the only job that's less secure in the automotive industry than that of a dealer principal is a general manager. So moving right forward, we do have some books we'd review, but Ian's got that. We like to review a book or 2 before the start. But without wasting any further time, we'll move forward. So Brian, this video that you posted, the 3 reasons general managers get fired, we only saw reason 1. What are reasons 2 and 3?
Well, like you saw in part 1, it was reason number 1 was changing with the times. As far as the second one, I like to say it's because of the middlemen. And when I say middlemen, that means middlemen or middle women, just to make sure that we keep everything even keel. And what that means is this: when you become a general manager, you rely heavily on your staff, your general sales manager, your sales manager, your team lead, if that's what your store has. And unbeknownst to most general managers, and I've seen it firsthand, Jeff, I've seen it to where a general manager hands down some orders. He said, hey, listen, I'd like for you all to work with the team on closing. I'd like you to work with the team on prospecting. I'd like you to work with the team on overcoming objections. Or sometimes even when they bring in a third party to come help with that. And I've watched it to where the GM hands down the orders, and somewhere between the dissemination of what the orders are, things get changed up by the time it gets spread to the sales team. So when the results don't match, well, guess what? It's hard for people to take personal responsibility. So it's a lot easier to say, hey, I did everything you asked me to do. I delivered it just like you asked me. And these folks just don't want to do it. So that's what creates that opening and revolving door. Next thing you know, 90 days later, the person with the pink slip is the one who had the right idea the whole time. But the middlemen or middle women somewhere along the way put their own agenda in there. And the person left holding the bag is that GM. And the third one is fear. And you all know how this industry is. If you're somebody that's listening now and you've been around the business for a while, I always say the automotive industry is the slowest transitioning industry out of almost anyone that I've seen. It's the old adage of, well, we do it this way because we've always done it this way. And that fear of change, and we all know that fear stands for false evidence appearing real or false expectations appearing real. So general manager, they're afraid to change. Why? Because we've always done it this way. It's either that, and I put a / ego. So fear or ego. And the ego part comes in as well. It's my show, regardless if I'm new to this store, if I'm new to this city, or if I'm new to this state. I feel that I know what's best, and I don't need input of anybody else. So they're afraid to change because it's always been done this way, or they're too egotistical to get out of their own way and allow for some positive things to happen. So it's changing as far as not changing with the times, your management staff's middleman or middlewoman approach, or fear / ego that I believe cause the most problems.
Terrific. Yeah, it's some very good point there, and I like your thing on your first, your number one reason that said a lot of these guys have been around. Been around forever, and aren't changing with the times. I actually knew a director of ops for a group that told all the GMs, "This is how I want to do it," and they all went rah. Yeah, then they went back to their stores and did it their own way.
Yeah, right.
And the ones that did it, he didn't like so much. He liked people to not listen to him. By the way, your mic has gone a little bit staticky on my end, so.
Oh, I apologize.
Not a problem. So where do you think a GM's loyalty should lie? Is the GM's loyalty with the team, the people that are actually the business, or with the owner or ownership, who are the money behind it? Where should their loyalty lie?
With both. See, and I'm glad you asked that question because I believe a lot of times they either split it one or two. I've seen the GM that is solely dedicated to what ownership or the managing partner, what they want to do, and totally ignore what the soldiers on the battlefield are saying. And then I've seen it to where they've been just that player's coach, that one that every salesperson loves working for, but they're not quite following what the managing partners or the ownership is saying. I think it's got to be both, meaning that you have to be able to take your marching orders from the managing partner or the ownership, but you got to be that good general, no pun intended, and to be able to relay that message or convey that message to your soldiers that are in the field in a way that they not only understand it, but that they buy into it. I think, is my mic better?
Yeah, it's about the same.
It's really, really staticky.
Yeah, it's just hard to hear you. So maybe plug it in and unplug it, maybe.
If this was a room, Brian, we could just turn off the mic and we could hear you.
Is that any better at all?
About the same.
God, dog. Let me see what happens if I stick my
No problem.
headphone in.
I have some technical glitches myself this morning, so.
I apologize.
Right.
So, with what everybody can, and folks, please excuse me. I'm gonna go old school, and I'm gonna stick this headphone piece in there. Let's see if this sounded off.
Oh, way better.
All right.
Is this any better?
Oh, way better.
All right, okay. So I guess the answer to that is both, okay? That yes, you have to follow what the ownership of the team is asking. It's like a sports team, whether it be NBA or NFL. If the ownership says, listen, our objective is to make the playoffs. That is our objective. Whatever you need to do to get there, get there. Now it's the coaches or the general manager's responsibility to make sure that they have a hand in finding the right people, make sure they have a hand in making sure they're prepared, and then making sure that they execute. So I don't believe it has to be a one or the other, but it will behoove them to make sure that they pay close attention to what the people that are cutting their checks are asking, but at the same time realizing that the soldiers in the field, they play a huge part in whether you continue to get that check. So I don't believe you can run a successful store without having them both. And I believe that a smart general manager or some of the ones that I have seen that are successful, they've done a great job of being completely transparent with their team. I believe too often we have this closed door policy, and it's kind of like, listen, anything that's said in the dark regarding the team that can't be shared probably isn't something that's on the up and up. Why shouldn't they know what the targets are? Why shouldn't they know where the struggle is? Why shouldn't they know what's at risk? I believe the better everybody understands, the better they execute. And one last point I want to make is that too often I've seen it to where the general manager is taking the orders from the ownership. Great, and that's fine. Like I said, it's supposed to do. But again, when it comes to the soldier, they're asking them to give something that they themselves are unwilling to give. It's kind of like when these people need time off, a day off, or some form of support. It's almost like they have to be ready to give up their DNA. If they have a really important thing, they got to go take care of a spouse, a child, or just need a day to mentally get themselves in order. We know that it's almost impossible for them to just get that day just because. The story says we want loyalty, and on your off day, be here. When it's time for you to get off, you need to be willing to stay here. But at the same time, when they look for that same type of support, that same type of understanding, they don't get it from the other end. So it's just got to be, they have to do both, and they have to do make sure that they pay close attention to listening to the soldiers and making sure that they fully understand what the marching orders are from the top and find what's called balance. And I believe they'll be okay.
Yeah. So the thing is this then? Who, if they lose by following the marching orders from the top and ignoring the soldiers, and they win by going with the soldiers, what works? What happens?
Many times they keep if they go with the soldiers and it works, it's kind of, everybody that owns these stores loves profit. So if your way with the soldiers is generating the results that they wanted, I've never seen the general manager get fired for positive production ever. So when it works, then you already know. Then listen, because think about it, man. These managing partners or owners or even the GMs themselves, when was the last time they've ever really been in the field? So when you're listening to your soldiers and it works, again, what you allow is the managing partner to look good and say, I knew it the whole time. They're doing that based off what I said. It's when you listen to the soldiers and it doesn't work when there's a problem. So you better make sure you just got the right soldiers on your team. And that's where the rubber meets the road. How many stores really have the right soldiers? Very few. Why? Because they spend more money focused on generating leads and spending $100,000 a year on marketing, but won't even spend a fraction of that on preparation and on training, which is mind-boggling. Can you imagine if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers spent all that money to get Tom Brady and Gronk and Antonio Brown, but then decided that they were never, ever going to practice the whole year, but expected to win a Super Bowl? It would have been crazy. Or, hey, guys, we don't have to spend any money to get a good offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. We got Tom, Gronk, and these guys. Let's get the best intern we can find to run these positions, and let's just see what happens. it would have never worked. So even though you got the great players and you say these guys know the game frontwards and backwards, Tom Brady still has a quarterback coach. Antonio Brown still has a receivers coach. Gronk has a tight ends coach, and these guys are potential Hall of Famers. So taking a person that's new to the game or been in it for a year and say, just roll the balls out and let them do what they want. But folks, make sure we hit this target. It doesn't make sense. It's insane.
We have a question from the audience. You mentioned ego earlier. Do you have a unique way where you approach or deal with a GM that has a big ego?
Oh my God, yes. I've got countless stories of that. This happened to me maybe 2 years ago. And the only reason why this one stands out because I had never met someone that had an ego bigger than this guy. I went into a store and I had worked with them under the previous general manager a few years prior. So I went in and I know all of his salespeople mostly. It's local here in Jacksonville. It's a Nissan store, won't say who. But I go in and before I even had an opportunity to introduce myself good, this man said, hey, look, let me tell you something. I don't need you. I've got everything under control. This is my ship now. And the way I've got things set out, you know, we handle everything in-house. And I said, look, I got you, brother, no problem. I just wanted to introduce, listen, did you hear what I said? You know, so you might as well walk out the door. And I just was like, forget the fact about me introducing myself about business. It was just about being polite and being a human being. And I will admit, what I told him on my way out rung true. I said, okay, I'll leave. I said, but remember this one thing. I said, I'll be talking to your replacement in 90 days. And of course, when I said that, he really got upset and said, look, get out of my store. Don't ever come back. Not a problem. Literally, it wasn't 90 days. I was wrong. But it was within 120 days, this same individual, after learning more about who I was, literally reached out to me on LinkedIn and asked me if I could help him find a general manager spot with one of the dealer groups that I do business with. Now, he could have avoided all of that. He was from out of state, didn't know Jacksonville very well at all. And I was just there to introduce and give just some words of wisdom, which is this is a city of relationships, not all the pie in the sky and fly by night tricks. You come down here with that, you're not going to last long. And guess what? He didn't. And so just being polite to someone and just if it was 5 minutes, all you wanted to give me or 5 seconds, but there was nothing wrong with being polite. He felt so powerful that without even allowing me to introduce myself fully, wanted me out of his store. And in turn, he was kicked out of his own store. So that's just one of the examples. And one of the pieces of advice I have is that GM's time is very priceless. They don't have a lot of time to mess around and hem-haw with people that are walking in. I get it. But you never know who that person is that may be calling or walking into your store that could play a huge part in your longevity or your success at that store. You never know. So at least give a person the opportunity to just introduce themselves. That's it. And if you're better served without them, by all means, be polite about it because you never know what type of impact they can have over your position.
Well, you know, there was a comment made here. Cliff asked who's training the sales representatives, which is interesting. And usually in some stores, it's the other sales representatives, I guess.
Yeah.
And after your comment about Mr. Brady and Gronkowski, etc., an individual can win a game, but teams win championships.
Good.
And Bill mentioned a very interesting comment here. Said absolutely about one of your comments, training a counter person at Tim Hortons, which is like Dunkin' Donuts down there, to sell coffee and donuts is a 3-week training process. How many car salespeople get 3 weeks training and 6 months even to be considered for a manager's or shift manager's position? And very interesting comment as well from him. This person you spoke to was known as unconscious incompetence.
Exactly. Yep. They had the nerve to reach out to me for help. That was the most mind-boggling thing ever.
Most people like that don't have the nerve. Exactly. Ian.
Yeah. So in your opinion, I mean, I know job descriptions are kind of cut and paste in from a lot of HR departments from what I've seen. What's a true job description in your opinion of what a GM needs to have in order to actually do that job?
Um, uh, uh, to me, first and foremost, is people skills. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of X's and O people. There's a lot of folks that are great with analytics and they're great at crunching the numbers. All of that is fine. But the last time I checked, even though we call it the automotive sales business or the car business, we're in the people business first and foremost. Because that piece of plastic or metal is an inanimate object that makes no decisions, does nothing without human interaction. It is the men and women that fill up these buildings that mean everything. So if you are not a great communicator, or not, and people say you have to be a great motivator, I disagree a little bit because motivation is like gas in a car. You fill your car up with gas. Yes, you can drive in it, but you still have a limited distance before you have to refill it. So if you constantly have to motivate your team, you're doing something wrong. You want to get people to buy in to the point to where it's not about motivation. It's about everybody being dedicated and committed to achieving a goal. You know, too often we say we want the store to hit 200 cars. We want the store to break the record. But what about the individual accomplishments of the people in the store? Too often, management believes that everybody's motivated by money. Everybody's not motivated by money. If you take a person whose mother and father only made $40,000 a year while they were growing up, but now they're at a dealership making 50,000. And the management's going crazy saying, why aren't they going for 75? What's wrong with them? Hey, you can make 75, 75. And the person isn't getting with it. Why? Because in their mind, if money is the barometer, they've already achieved success. They're making more than their mother and father. But if you could find out what other life goal or accomplishment it is that really gets this person's fire burning, it could convey that, hey, by doing this, you can achieve that. Now you'll have somebody that's willing to go for it. Some people want to be recognized. Some people never want to be in management, but if just every month they got a certificate of recognition for accomplishing hitting their goal of 12, that piece of paper on their wall or in their cubicle will keep them far more motivated than the extra $3,000 or $4,000 on their check. As crazy as that sounds, that's the reality of the world we live in. So they have to be a great people focused first. Secondly, they have to learn how to delegate. If they're not a good delegator, they're done. You know, you have that GM that has to do everything. Well, man, if you're in that spot and you got to do everything, you're never going to win because it's impossible. So you have to have good people skills, be a great delegator, and lastly, which really should be first, a great listener. You have to be willing to sit down. It's like in the courtroom. The person that speaks the least is the judge, but the person who has the most power in the room is the judge. So we have to be more like judges and fall back and listen. You know what they say? We have 2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 mouth for a reason. So good people skills, a great delegator, and an awesome listener are the 3, to me, most impactful skills a GM has to have.
Well, you know, there was a comment by Cliff that said that, you know, glass, steel, bricks, and mortar don't sell, people do, and teaching principles of self-management. So,
Yep.
what is the lowest hanging fruit a GM can grab at that can have an immediate and positive impact?
Training. And when I say training, it's not just because I own a sales training company, Sales Professionals of America Recruiting, and not because, you know, that's my area of expertise. Whether it's someone else out there that they trust, believe in, it's training. And you said it earlier, Jeff, you or Ian said it earlier, or maybe it was Cliff or Bill or somebody. It amazes me when there's a 12 car a month or a 15 unit a month producer who the staff now has training their sales team. And we all know, typically, the best salespeople in a store, they don't even know why they have what they have or how they do what they do, because they're just doing their thing. If you ask them, hey, share with this person how you do that. They'll say, I don't really know. And the person who they have doing it, if someone's a 15 unit a month producer, the best they can do is train your people how to be a 10 to 12 month. And that's just me being gracious with what I say. Dealerships specialize in helping people solve their transportation problems. Facts. But there are people out here who specialize, who taking information and disseminating it in a way to where on a third grade level, it could be comprehended and executed. But what happens is they say, oh, we don't want to spend that money having somebody from the outside, when that's exactly what you should do. It's very hard to take a picture and see yourself in the frame, right? So many times they're so close to the situation that they can't see the real issues because it's so day to day and it's so usual that it doesn't even seem like an issue. Many times having someone that you trust, that is credible, that has a proven track record, come in from the outside, they can see things that you can't see, that have been there the entire time. So training is number one. And when I say training, not just your typical road to the sale. That's the 10 steps that every salesperson should know, but it's why you take this step and how it helps benefit the customer, which will in turn benefit you, Mr. or Miss Individual. So if you're going to spend $100,000 a year driving in all these great leads of these qualified people, but then you hand them off to somebody who isn't skilled or prepared, it's like the gentleman said, it's 3 weeks training to teach somebody how to say, would you like a coffee and a donut? That costs $2.99, maybe $7 total. 3 weeks. And I've watched dealerships hire a team of people and roll the balls out and wonder why their lead system or their BDC system isn't executing. Well, you gave more consideration to somebody that's going to be serving you your donut than somebody that's selling a $30, $40, $50,000 product. The second largest purchase in most people's lives, and you don't believe that takes some TLC, that's training, learning, and consideration. It does. So if you do run a store, if you're managing a store, no matter how skilled you are, how much time is really dedicated? You all know, like I know, that hour sales meeting that every store loves to have? 45 minutes of it is ass chewing. Then 15 minutes of it is the sales training, which is, hey guys, make sure that when a customer objects, you try to overcome it. Now let's go out there and do it. And the person sitting there saying, I don't even know what the hell an objection is. And they just going out there. Or you're expecting them to watch these videos or to read this. You realize that today's average person, in the 80s, the average attention span was 20 minutes. Today, it's 8 seconds. If a person looks at a video and it's 3 minutes long, they're skipping past it. If a person looks at a booklet and it's a half of an inch thick, they're tossing it to the side. So you can invest in the videos and you can buy the manuals, but without that human interaction to make sure that it's implemented and applied, it'll never work. So I know that was a long answer to a short question, but it's training your people to execute at a high level and giving them the confidence that you are willing to do everything you can to help them succeed.
It's a very interesting comment, and what Ian and I hear in this regularly, because we get people from all over North America and in Europe, and even Greece, and it's something that's throughout the entire industry. Hello, welcome, nice to have you here. Here's your stock list, go sell cars. And then somebody says to them later when they're sitting around with their buddies, we got a great training program.
Or they tell every new hire that. They say, is there training? Oh yeah, when we get you in here, we're gonna train you up, we're gonna work with you. The first day they're sitting for 3 hours without anybody speaking to them. Then they're given a stack of paperwork like this, and then they said, go shadow that complete stranger that you've never met before and go watch them do what they do. And that's training. Or
they
do
sit
this
them in the
module
room,
and become certified.
or they stick them in the room with a video.
Right, yeah. That certification is the training. Right, yeah. If they focused on how much money they lose and blown opportunities, they will realize you're paying for training already, just not in the direction that you like it to be. You're paying for it in your losses rather than your profits and gains.
And your 15 car a month person that's training them now drops down to 12 because they're not on the floor. Or even worse, it's the 30 car a month salesperson they got training them.
Oh Lord, which means not they're losing out on that. And at the end of the day, is that person training them on the right way? Here's what I mean. Again, not saying any names. I know a gentleman here in Jacksonville who was at the same store I was at when I first started, who was a vet, who was a $250,000 a year producer. To this day, he's still selling 25 plus, and he's in his 60s. But he cost the store another 30 because if it doesn't fit his box of what he is comfortable with, he blows it out. So he's gonna give you 25, but he's gonna cost you 30. So is that really a benefit? Is that really a gain? No, not at all.
Yeah.
I have a question, since it is a GM show, and obviously there's been some focus on GMs who didn't make it for whatever reason. How do you avoid getting fired as a GM, and what's your advice to GMs that feel their job is at risk right now to keep their job?
I think first and foremost, how often do you believe a GM actually tests his staff? And here's what I mean.
Oh,
Somebody trying to, I apologize, the call was coming through at the time. We have these GMs that staff up, let's say the GSM and the desk manager, right? But how many times have you ever seen a general manager take their GSM or desk manager to the side or in a private room and then hit them with certain objections and say, tell me how you would handle this? How often is their skill set ever tested? So first and foremost, before I put somebody to lead my troops, I want to make sure that they have to be better than every troop that we've got to prove why they're in that seat. Oftentimes, they're not. So they're unable to convey the skills to the people that they really need to be successful. So to me, I would make sure that if I have a support team around me, their skill set, their iron has got to be as sharp as mine. And you know, iron sharp as iron. So we love to test the salespeople, and we love to make sure that they know what to say and do. But if this is the person that's leading my troops, how well do they know what to say and do? You know, it's the leading with the carrot rather than the whip. So the first thing I'd want to do is make sure my team is battle tested. And number two, I'd have weekly sessions, not just with a group, but where I take a few minutes to make sure every salesperson knows that they have my ear, and they should not be afraid to really let me know where they feel we have some issues of concern and what we could do to be better. You know who the best informed person is in the entire dealership? The front desk receptionist or the technicians. They know that receptionist, whoever's that first front desk person, that's who I befriend first, because they see and hear everything. But ask how often is their expertise or their information accepted, asked for, or even used? Very rarely ever. So building a powerful, strong support team and constantly testing their skills to make sure that their iron is sharp is one of the best ways. And having a team that's not afraid of me, that believes in me, and is willing to speak truth to power rather than being afraid to tell the emperor that they have no clothes.
It's the other person, by the way, that my experience has always been that knows what's going on with the staff anyways is the F&I managers.
Oh yeah, they know too. Yeah, they know.
Go into and they say, don't tell anybody, but
this is what's going on, but don't say nothing. You know how often they tell me that as the trainer there, especially when I come back and I'm there frequently. Man, I get all the stuff that the GM doesn't even know is going on, and I say, "You didn't tell them this?" Nah, man. If I go in there and say that, they're gonna fire me, or such will try to get back at me, and that's not the way it should be.
Well, isn't there an acronym for fear? I don't know what it is, but it's like you're managed by fear.
False evidence appearing real.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's for darn sure. It's also oh, there's all sorts of them in this business.
False expectations. Yeah, so many you can roll them out. Pick that, take your pick.
Exactly. Well, hopefully it's fleet, which is full list each and every time.
Hey, I like that.
Nice. Anybody else have some questions out there to hit Brian with?
Bring them on.
Scott?
Not necessarily questions, but I will say, Brian, you've had some great insights, and it's been a good show so far. So thank you. But it's always interesting to watch, well, like you said, that 25-year guy or the 25 car guy a month when he's training the newbie. His exact words are, "This is how we're supposed to do it, but this is how I do it." And you are so derailed at that point, it is not even up for debate. Like, you're not even on your own training schedule at that point. And the other thing, having sat in that chair for quite some time, was the fact that if you don't own what the ownership's message is and you keep blaming them and you keep saying, "Look, this isn't me, this is the owner, this isn't me, this is the owner," you're basically working yourself out of a job anyway, because you are not owning what the team's marching orders are supposed to be.
Right.
And I've heard that too many times. You'll sit in a meeting somewhere and it's like, "Don't blame me. It's him that said this, and he's the one who put the target on, and this is his spiff, and this is his pay plan reduction," or whatever the place may be.
Yep.
And as a GM, it's not always happy news. You have to deliver, but you have to own it, and it has to be yours, because you
Yep.
can't blame the level above. You have to separate that.
I also want to add on too is how often is something implemented, right? Like, hey, folks, we're going to be doing this, and every week your managers are going to be checking up on it. You and I both know the moment the sales staff realizes that you are not going to follow through on what you said, they're throwing it to the side. And once a reputation is developed, like, oh, here we go with another new thing. We're going to just have to play along for a few days and it'll be gone. You lose them that way too. They're gone that way too. So, what they say, you can't expect what you don't inspect. So if you're going to implement something, stand behind it and actually do it. Because once you lose that credibility with the team, it's over. You'll never get that back.
Yeah, we've got lots of some comments there from Cliff and Bill. Basically, yeah, it's about alignment. And also, I mean, I had an experience years ago. I was working with a large deal group in the Greater Toronto area, and they had a guy who was like the super closer at the store, and he was supposedly selling, I don't know, 30, 40 cars a month or something. And what he would do is, to your point, he would burn through another 40 that he didn't think we're buying right now. And then he had another salesman he was training, and that salesman would get half a deal if he referred anybody he talked to on the lot to this other guy. So it was just like, and I did some math, and basically what he was costing the store was hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in lost.
Brother, in the stats, in the statistics and just analytics, just nationwide, we all on this call right now know the number one reason why a person chooses to leave a store and go to another one, everybody would think it's price, but it's really not. It's really not. It's the lack of trust in the individual they're dealing with. What's the number one reason why people leave companies? It's not because of the amount of money they make. It's the lack of recognition and appreciation. And in the dealerships around the country, I don't believe there's enough recognition given to incentivize. And it doesn't cost a lot of money. We're talking about if a person sets a target for 10 and they achieve that, recognize them with a piece. You got free certificates, templates that are all over the internet. Take you 2 seconds to say goal accomplished, such and such name, and give it to them. That internal piece of a feeling of accomplishment will keep your team going hard for you for another 30, 90, 6 months, maybe even a year. And so we just believe, oh, I'm giving you an opportunity to earn, that's good enough. Those days are gone. We're dealing with a whole nother type of mentality today. And it's an entitlement mentality, but we're not going to be able to change that. And I'm not talking about just millennials either. I'm sick of millennials getting blamed for everything. Sometimes it's these old dogs that don't feel like they're getting enough recognition. So I think recognition and again, just being more, um, making things more personal with each individual member of your team goes a long way.
Look, a mention was made earlier too that Barry mentioned it, and one thing that our world's political climate right now is full of is "wasn't me."
Right.
I that song always comes up in my head because our politics up here, we have our federal government's been in power now for about 6 years, and they're still blaming the previous party for things not going right.
Like
And
here.
yeah, just like
Mhm.
everywhere. And the funny part is I've been in this business a long time. I won't admit how long. I don't want to do that. But we're saying the same things today. We're saying the same things. You got to train. You got to do this. You got
Mhm.
to do that. Yet we're still making the same mistakes. And I actually have a question for you. What percentage of GMs and sales management do you feel are qualified enough to be in their positions?
I believe from the GM spot, you don't become a general manager by mistake. I do believe that most GMs I met are folks that come from that work their way and busted their ass to get to where they are. No doubt. They're intelligent, they're hard driving, but yet they have, some of them say, well, I did it, especially if they came from really humble beginnings. It's kind of like, I did it, so anybody can do it. Well, no, anybody may have the opportunity, but everybody doesn't have that same internal mechanism, that drive. It's like you and Ian starting this show. There's a lot of people with a lot of information. Not everybody has the drive or the willingness, the work ethic to do a consistent show every week. Or like myself, there's a lot of men and women that are far more skilled than I may be, but they didn't have the drive or the work ethic to put it together, to put that information out and to build a brand or a business behind it. So I believe that the percentage of general managers that get there, I think that's pretty high. Now, excuse me, my dogs, if you can hear them, but the desk managers and sales managers, I do believe that at times could be based on a buddy network, depending on where you're at and who you know. Because I've seen some desk managers that I said, how in the hell did you get this spot? You have no idea what's going on. Then you find out that they're such and such's brother, such and such's cousin, or somebody's son. Now, GSM, again, I respect that position because for the most part, to get there, you're about your business, you're good at executing information, and you worked your way. But what happens is, I think a lot of times we forget that we were once that person that had no idea what's going on. And somebody may have helped us, referred a book to us, or sat us down, pulled our coattail, and put us on the right track. So I think GMs is high. Up under that is kind of pick your poison depending on where you are, who runs the group, and who's in that position to delegate those spots. What do you think?
Uh, I think general managers, in my opinion, for the most part, probably earned it. So I would say that number is probably in the 75 to 80% range. I would say GSMs, I would agree with you. I think it's about probably similar number, maybe a little lower, like 60%. But sales managers or desk managers, yeah, that can be anything. I mean, that could be
Right.
that could be 20% good. Man, I've seen the whole gamut there, and I think it also depends on the philosophy of the ownership of the group or the store too. You
And the
know,
desk managers are the ones closest to your team members, which is why it blows my mind because it's like that position should be scrutinized and delegated with far more focus than it is. Because this is who your sales team is TOing to. This is who 9 times out of 10 is running your weekly meeting. This is who is conveying most of the good or bad information between the team and the upper management is that desk manager. So I believe that position should be paid as much attention to as a GSM or GM, but it's really not. Really not.
but I think part of the challenge with the desk managers is they were people that maybe sold cars well, potentially, but they didn't
Sometimes.
necessarily have any real management training at all.
Right.
And they don't know what they don't know, but also, I think it's hard for a store to attract people that have that expertise. And if they do attract them, they tend to put them in a more senior position.
Right. Yep.
A mistake, but the onus should be on the GSM and the GM to sit down with that new sales manager or desk manager and say, listen, like, if your goal is to get to be a GM or a GSM, here's what you need to master right now. I mean, I think there was something that was on the call I was on with Brian with Paragon on the weekend. Everyone wants to go to the next step when they have not mastered the step they're on now.
Right. Yep.
100%. I think
Yep.
that's the biggest issue. He was talking about people from sales wanting to move to F&I, and he says, well, but you haven't even figured out sales yet.
It's the craziest thing.
First.
Yeah. Well, I've been here for 2 years, so I believe I should. Since when did length of time equal, qualification? It doesn't.
So that was something that really struck me on the call I was on Saturday. Was just sort of the focus on, understanding what you're doing, and more importantly, there's nothing wrong with someone who just wants to sell cars if that's what they want to do. There's nothing wrong with someone who just wants to be an F&I if that's what they want to do, or be a service director or whatever. It doesn't mean that being a GM or a GSM is necessarily where you should be. Maybe
Right. Yeah.
maybe you don't want to be there. Maybe doesn't make sense for you. And I think a lot of it back when I sold cars was, oh, that person who's a sales manager must be a sales manager because they know something.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I
Then you
thought.
learn. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Then you learn and you say, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. This person has no idea what's going on, but yet they're there. And then have the nerve to have an attitude about it and be, cocky and arrogant and unapproachable is what I call it. Ridiculing. And one quick point I want to make out, and for anyone that watches this that is in leadership, when I'm in there staffing up a store, you have people from all different walks of life, right? And and it's always the desk manager who looks at a person and says, oh, hey, listen, that person's not going to work out. And I'll be like, well, what makes you say that? Did you see how they look? Or somebody comes in really sharp and they're like, hey, Brian, that's the one. Now, I had to say this recently at a Toyota store here in Florida, where I said, man, don't you ask your salespeople not to judge a book by its cover based on someone's exterior perception? I said, now, if you ask them to do that, but yet you're basing whether someone will be a good team member based off your exterior perception, I said, do you know something? I said, if I had to select who would be in management in most of the stores I'm at, I said, most of y'all wouldn't be in these seats if it was based off of the eye test, because you all don't look very attractive either. And it shut him down real quick, because who are you to judge what someone's grit, determination, and drive is based off of the way you believe they're attractive or unattractive? Since when did that have anything to do with it? And if it did, you probably wouldn't be sitting at that desk. So take it down a notch.
100%.
I have a question for you. How many people are trained for the position they get promoted to? So how many times does a person get promoted to a sales manager's position, receive sales manager training before they hit the ground?
I personally have not even ever heard of it in any store, period. Now, I have seen it very rarely at some of the more successful groups where they have taken a manager, somebody that's going to be a up-and-coming manager, and put them in another store and allow them to mirror other managers for a number of weeks. There's one group like Morgan Automotive Group in Florida. They do that. When they're going to promote you, you're going to be working at another store in that position with who that person is, so you learn the ropes. But very rarely at all. General managers go to school, finance managers go to school, sales managers, no school. Or forget school, just no training. They're just taken and thrusted out there. And remember, we said it. You may be a great salesperson, or may be horrible at showing someone else how to do what you did. Or you may be a exceptional listener, but what comes out of your mouth is so confusing that nobody would understand it. So I do believe that more training has to be put into it, more consideration. Um, how do you do that? I don't know how each store will handle that, but I do believe it's necessary.
I did work with a group years ago that I thought was pretty good at it. It's Hendrick Automotive Group. I think they have about 100 stores.
Familiar with them?
They were very good at not only really having a great understanding of the personalities types of the people that work for them, but also they're very driven on process training for the group. So obviously, you want to look at who's doing it well and really, emulate that as much as you can. But I agree that,
Right.
I mean, getting someone who maybe sold 25 cars a month and expecting them to then lead a team of 8 to 10 salespeople or 4 to 6 salespeople or whatever the number is kind of crazy.
It is insane, right? And what you'll find is typically your top producers, they don't want to take that spot because they don't want to take the pay cut. So you end up taking that third or fourth best person. Let's face it, because if I'm a top producer on the sales floor, can I really take the next 2 or 3 years taking that pay cut, waiting for the next big jump? They don't. So you take that person that's that third or fourth on the totem pole who says, well, I'm not making very much already. I'm doing okay. I'll take it because I want the bump on the resume and rather than the check. So, that's what ends up happening.
But the other thing that happens too is if you do take that top guy or whoever you girl or whoever you happen to take, the other thing that happens is they've been so well rewarded for being selfish, and doing everything for themselves and kicking the team whenever they can and sliding he doesn't look like he can get finance to the newbie and all that kind of stuff. And then you're going to put him in an office and say, now please lead my team and do everything you can to make my team successful. Well, it just doesn't happen. It's a total different mindset.
Total different mindset. Yep.
For darn sure. It's I've seen it so many times. I've done it. I hate to say it. So and so, you're great. Come on, you're a sales manager, and you show everybody what you did. And you mentioned it earlier, Brian, that they have no idea what they do. Really.
Right.
Oh, Ian, we got your desktop. Nice car.
There's a few books that I was going to do.
I
earlier.
see the Delia, hey, Ian.
Pardon, sorry?
I see
Questions.
your screen, your
it's
your
a
desktop.
screen. I'm having all kinds of problems today.
The trouble is, everybody, when you see Ian's desktop, you have to look for the icons and see what stuff he's actually got.
That's what I do. I look for the icons on somebody's desktop.
There you go.
Here's our books we missed earlier.
Yep. So these are 3 books Jeff picked from earlier. And any final thoughts?
Oh, wow. Making it pencil. I think I might check that out.
Well,
Brian O'Kelly.
I searched for your books, but I didn't find any. But I found a bunch of other little things, but there wasn't any pretty covers, so I couldn't promote them.
Oh, mine's are on Amazon. Yeah, I have to send you. When we do this again, I'll get them to you. They're on the QDP portion of like Amazon and some of those other book retailers. I was about to say, yeah, because I got some nice covers, man. That's some really nice covers.
Yeah,
I'll get them for you.
And I wasn't going to actually put covers on of some of your competing trainers. One guy who's been on the show, because he seems to dominate. He's got like 82 books.
Oh, Lord. Who is he?
I don't want to say his name.
Oh, okay. Silly me, right?
Brian, any final comments from your end?
Just, again, anybody in a leadership role, I just really hope that you take more of a proactive rather than a reactive approach when it comes to making sure your team has everything they need. And do this by having a closed door session without your middle management staff and let them open up to you and tell you what's going on without any fear of retribution. If they share something with you, don't go running back. Oh, this is what this person said, because those managers will know who said what based off who they interact with. But just listen, take it in, and really focus on providing them with the proper tools to sharpen their sword. That's all. And if you know you're struggling training, if you know you're struggling in certain areas, you help people solve transportation problems. Let others come in and help you solve those type of training problems, skill building problems. And I'm more than available. Brian Maxwell, Sales Professionals of America Recruiting, 904-438-8556. I work nationwide, and I'd be more than willing to come in there and work with you to see what we can do to help your dealership become a better producing store.
Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Any guests have any final questions for Brian? I say that's a no.
Ian and Jeff, thank y'all for letting me come back in and get another swing at the bat, because I struck out the last time that I was going to do this. So thank you folks so much for having me back on, man. You guys are my guys. Anything you all ever need from me, you got it.
All right. Terrific. Thank you. Next week, we are going to be having our old dogs versus young guns show. We've got some people lined up to show the difference between the people that have been around for a while and the new young upcoming way of doing business. I have heard that most of the young people can drive a manual transmission, so that would be a great thing. And keep your eyes open for Vendor Speak. We're actually on the point of relaunching our Vendor Speak in the new format. And with that, Ian, I'll leave it to you to close.
Great show. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but great show. And really appreciate Brian coming on, everybody else, for all the great questions and feedback. Have a great week.
Hey, I had fun doing it by myself anyways. I said jokes about you.
Hey, he played it off real smooth too, Ian. He didn't ruffle his feathers. He just went smooth on with it. So you guys are pros.
You're going to get a gift card for $20 Canadian, which is about 50 cents American. So no. Thank you all for attending. Stay safe.
Thank you, fella. All right, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.